Welcome to the Resolve.ai webinar series. Before we get started, let us quickly go over a few housekeeping items. We love interactive events, so please feel free to ask any question in the Q&A section, which can be accessed at the bottom of your screen. We'll answer those questions towards the end during the Q&A session. If there are more questions than we can answer during the session, we'll get back to you, we promise. This webinar is being recorded, and a recording link will be shared after the event. Thanks again for joining today, and let us get today's session started, and welcome our host.
Hi everyone, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm your host Manish Sharma, and I'll be talking about microlearning and MS Teams today. Very excited to be here and sharing some thoughts and a detailed study plus a demo with you. Today's webinar is going to talk about the theory part, which is like, why is it required? What is the overall picture in learning? How has the pandemic affected us? Things of that nature. And then it's going to not just leave you at the theory, because Microsoft Teams and microlearning seems like a great idea. And nobody is talking about it yet, by the way, not many people at least. So what is the practical side? How do we take it to success? How do we actually implement it? And so on and so forth. So we are going to talk about that part as well and show you a product. Let's get started. And the first piece that we are going to talk about is, even before we talk about microlearning, we are going to talk about employee context and needs, how employee context and needs are changing. Actually, this is both true for employees and therefore enterprise. And what does it mean for us as learning and development professionals? What do we need to do to adapt to this change? So I found this quote from one of my connections in LinkedIn. I really liked what she said. And she said that, earlier we were able to get people, in offices, the perks for foosball tables and catered food and whatnot. And that was great. That used to work. That used to count as great workplace. And now, what do? Right? Part of your workforce is working from home. Some are working from office. Partially is going to always work from home. The rules of the game have changed. And therefore, according to her, the things which will matter to people are the bells and whistles related to tech and flexibility. And I couldn't agree with her more. The tech of employee workforce about learning, about training is critical to how people are going to view whether their workforce, the place where they work is great or not. As the employees are in a particularly tricky situation. We want to feel productive because we are working from home and everyone is trying to make sure that, everyone knows that we are being productive, right? There's a little bit of pressure on of us that we need to show that we are productive. And when you're trying to do that, you need to be equipped with the right tools so that you can be productive. You cannot do your job if you're not aware of some policy or certain, trainings just went by you and you didn't understand that. So you have to be equipped right if you have to be productive. There is something called enterprise friction that we define. We have defined, and basically we use this very commonly in our literature and our marketing material and certain indexes that we have created. But essentially, the concept of enterprise friction is you are trying to do something as an employee and you are not able to do it due to some reason. The reason might be you don't have the right support, you don't have the right knowledge, you don't have the right training. Whatever the case might be, and the higher the enterprise friction, the worse off both employees and enterprises with that, because obviously you're not able to do your job. Enterprise is frustrated. Everyone is not happy. We believe, therefore, that if the employee has to be productive and happy, there are three things that we need to do right for the employees. One, we have to provide them exceptional support. Two, we have to provide them ability to look up right information at right time. Anytime they want information, they should be able to look it up. And third, enterprise should be able to upskill and train people whenever they want, right? Because if you think about it, due to COVID, so many policies have changed. Just imagine if you are a contact center employee, how many times things would have changed in the last 18 months for you, right? To do the calls this way, ask that, add this additional nuance, don't check that, right? Don't say something which is, don't ask about, their person, whatever the case might be. But so many things would have changed. If you're an underwriter, if you're a storefront operator, if you're a university, professor, so many things have changed for people. And people need to be made aware about what those changes are. What is the effective way of doing this? Which way are you going to literally do this? Now, while we are talking about the problem, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the context, how the employee context has also changed, apart from the fact that pandemic has really changed our life. One is we are using collaborative tools much more than earlier. So Teams, and I'll talk about Teams because our company is kind of built around Teams. Um, Teams was being used by around 20 to 30 million people on a daily basis before the pandemic. Today, it is estimated that Teams is being used by 200 million people on a daily basis and growing very rapidly. So, therefore, it's a 10-time growth, 900% growth in around 18 months or so. That's the amount of growth that we are seeing about collaborative tool. We also did a survey and we found that people use Teams as one of the top 3 apps in their working environment. So if you're working in a large company, chances are Teams, you're on Teams, Teams will be among the top 3 apps. Chances are it might be among the top app actually that you're using because people are on Teams all the time. The second thing is the conversational interface. We are all getting more comfortable with it. So remember the time when all this was too new? Not anymore. We use it to watch a movie, select a movie, to look who's on front porch, to tell our Roomba to clean the house, whatever the case might be. But you are using conversational interface very, very frequently now. And given that you're working from home, your expectations around conversational interface has really kind of going up. So this is the broad context under which we are kind of living right now. Now, what about the current training models? What happened to the L&D, the way we are doing learning and development earlier? What is the impact of pandemic there? And many people here who are on the event today are already from L&D, so some of this is I'm sure redundant for you. But broadly, we kind of define learning as a pull learning or a push learning. Pull learning is something that you are going to water cooler and talking to people and getting some information and using that. Aha, I can do this way. Great. Oh, I didn't know about this policy. Now I know, right? So all that was great. And then there was a push training where I'm sending you emails and I'm sending you to conferences and things of that nature. Unfortunately, both of them have suffered, right? When a lot of people are not in offices, they're not talking to each other. That is suffering, and obviously, the ability of people to put people in a conference and so on and so forth. I mean, now everything is digital, but still a lot of things have suffered. It's not the same. So therefore, we need to react to this. This is not business as usual. By the way, someone was telling me statistics that around post-pandemic, the new employees that a company has right now, a typical large enterprise, is close to 10 to 20%. So 10 to 20% of your employees have joined after pandemic. And chances are they have not even gone to your offices. So in case your offices are not open completely or partially. So they might not have met all their colleagues and they are still working for you. And that is around 10 to 20%. And this number is only going to go up because attrition keeps happening. You keep hiring new people and whatnot. What kind of L&D challenge that throws to you is beyond imagination. So my point that I'm trying to make is things have really changed. We have taken a gut punch, so to say, given the changes that have happened in the learning environment. And the traditional systems, while they were good for static environment, right? Traditional LMS, they have some drawbacks. The format is generally long form. If it's a 1 hour training, 2 hour training, you assume. I was talking to a CIO recently, and she said, "Listen, whenever I have to do learning, I have two computers. On one, I start my online learning, and the other, I'm really doing my work because I find it so boring. And this is a CIO, right? So the reason I'm saying this is that the traditional learning, have really a little bit boring. People believe that they're boring, they're long, and by the way, they don't have any hand holding. So if you get stuck in the traditional learning, who do you ask? I don't understand this. I don't know what is being said. What do I do next, right? That is a huge problem because you don't feel like you're connected to the trainer in order to kind of learn. And that is a huge problem in our opinion. Unless until you and I feel like we are talking to each other, just machine teaching me alone is probably not enough. And we find that there's a huge second problem is that they are not very fast. So if you want to, let's say there's a policy change due to some reason, and you want to train all the employees on that, and you want to do it really in a jiffy, you want to send the training like tomorrow morning, traditional LMS is probably not the way to go. What you're going to do is you're going to send emails, and emails is something that people again don't, tend to read that much. So you like I like to tell this example as either you have a nuclear option, which is creating a program in LMS and taking 3 months doing it and then authorizing and whatever and then sending it, or you have a taking knife to the gunfight, which is sending an email. Either way, you are either overdoing it or underdoing it, and you don't seem to have the right tool to attack the problem. So one of the things that we feel is very important, of course, goes without saying that the learning should be micro learnings instead of longer learning, and so on and so forth. There's some other aspects that I'll cover, but we feel that the feedback loop and support is extremely important. That means an ability of a person to connect with either another person or another system to get clarification, to get a little bit of handholding as I'm going through the training, to not to feel that I'm alone in doing this is very, very important. We actually believe that there are three pieces that need to be put together to make a phenomenal learning system. So one, you should have obviously the micro learning content. So we don't believe in the longer learning content. As a matter of fact, let me rephrase that. Longer learning content are good for some other things. Let me put it that way. So if you're, trying to teach Node.js program to people, boom, LMS, traditional LMS perhaps is the right place to do, because maybe the content is for 16 hours and so on and so forth. But and it doesn't change very often, right? Node.js is not going to change from this year to next year, hopefully. But if you're trying to do this smaller, gaps that you're trying to fill, micro learning is obviously, there are a bunch of studies out there which tell you how much more retention is there, and how people remember more if it's micro learning as opposed to, there's like too many statistics around that, and most of the people here on the call are L&D folks, so I'm not going to repeat that. You would have heard that in some of the other conference already. Second thing we believe is a knowledge management system, some kind of chatbot to help you along when you're going through the learning, so that if you're getting stuck, there is some place which you can ask question and can help. Also, this help should also be connected to the actual trainer, right? So not only just a machine-based help, but an actual trainer who can look at the issues that are coming, and then based on the issues that are coming, improve the training or improve the bot, something like that. That is also very important. And we believe when you put these three pieces together, your solution is going to be great. Of course, the ace up there is Microsoft Teams, as you see, right? You need to have, put this all in a channel that people love. And needless to say, if it's conversational, it'll be even better, right? Instead of being the traditional system, if it's a conversational support, that is even better. So that's the broad kind of approach that we feel is the right one. Of course, the some key characteristics of micro learning are, your learning should be in bite-sized pieces, content should be in minutes and not in hours. Typically, we recommend 3 to 7 minutes kind of content, if that. It should be multimedia, right? It should be visual. And by the way, we like to say that we should be all be inspired by Twitter and TikTok, because that seems to be the mode in which youngsters and even everyone else like me is kind of following that, right? So that means smaller the content, the more visual, more to the point, funny. That is what we are all looking for. And finally, everything should be conversational, right? We truly believe that conversational interface is here to stay. The traditional interfaces are on the way out. So anything that you invest in, you should look at if there's a conversational interface to that or not. And by the way, entire thing on Teams, that's again, right? That's what I think is the final solution that a lot of people are looking for when looking at. Um, Going further, so let's talk a little bit about Marcel, because that is, imagine that is an example of a solution that you might be looking for. How will something like this will work? I can tell you how it works in our product, which is called Marcel. So the way it works is, you are on Teams, and let's say you are an employee and you're on Teams, and suddenly you get an intimation saying, "Hey, you have a training that has been allocated to you. It'll take around 3 to 7 minutes to do. Would you like to do it? And this is the training about." And you say, "Okay, you know what? I want to do it." You go and you start doing the training. While you're doing the training, it's obviously all GIF and images and videos and all that fun stuff. Then somewhere along the line, you have a question, you ask that question, and that question is being answered by the bot. And if the bot can answer the question, you are happy, fantastic. If the bot cannot answer the question, then bot says, "Okay, you know what? I'm going to connect you to the right person at my end, the person who created this training." And the bot will go and check if that person is available online or not. And if that person is available online, they'll say, "Okay, I'm connecting you to that person." And now this person and you are actually chatting with each other on Teams. Imagine you were able to reach the person who actually created the link. That'll be fun. But even if that person is not online available, a issue will be raised, and that person can come and solve that issue later. Now, not only that person can solve that issue later, but also say, in my training, people are not understanding this particular piece. Maybe I didn't do a great job of creating that content, and my content is not explaining this particular aspect very well. And then what they can do is they can do two things. They can go back and change the content of the training, because it's so simple to change it, or they can change the bot answer and equip the bot to answer that question. So if people are going to ask that question, let me just train the bot to answer that question. Either way, next time someone goes in to do the training, either they will see a better improved training, or they are going to see a bot that will be able to answer their question, right? So this is the feedback loop that I'm talking about, and this is the conversational AI that I'm talking about, and I'm going to show this to you in action. Just a couple of concepts before we go in, just the way, and I'm going to show you the demo next, but the way their library has different books have different chapters have different pages have sentences. I'm trying to talk about a hierarchy of things. Similarly, in our product, there's something called program, learning, topic, and articles, and I'll talk more about it. But essentially, it has a hierarchical structure in which you can create material and assign. You can assign a program to people, or you can assign a learning to people, or you can say that within a program, your multiple learnings will be assigned to you one after the other, and so on and so forth. So there's a hierarchical structure to training here, and you can easily use that. That being said, let's look at the demo, because I'm sure many of you were curious about this product that I'm talking about. How do you bring microlearning to Teams? So this is your Teams, right? This is my Teams, at least. And there's an app, and within the app, there is your training content, right? So if you're getting a new training, the app will start to become red, and people say, "Oh, what's going on in this app?" And maybe you'll also get an intimation by email or audio intimation. And then you say, "Let me see what's going on. Looks like some training is assigned to me," and the system will tell you what training is assigned to you, etc., etc. I'm just restarting the program, so it's not starting with the same, "Oh, you have a new training assigned to you, Manish." But let's just go see what training is there. So looks like I was doing this training. This is in progress. There's some training which is already removed. So things keep happening in my world. And it says, "Okay, you are going to this training. Do you want to resume where you left off, or you want to revisit a completed training?" I'm going to revisit. I want to show you from the beginning. So there are a couple of topics here. Again, I said program, learning topics. So let's say I'm going to do introduction to resolve. That's the topic I want to do. It says okay, and it begins. It talks about, it is talking about our another product, which is a service desk product. And here you go.
Every day, employees waste time and get frustrated looking for information or trying to get help. They write emails or call their service desk, being experts on MS Teams, and go back and forth to resolve their issues.
Whatever. So there's a complete video that I can watch. I can continue. It easily moves from one to another. Then it says, okay, and I want you to pay attention to this get help button, because this get help button, or is the one point that I was trying to tell you earlier, that you can easily get help. Now we come to a checkpoint and says, okay, let's see what you remember, Manish. I hope I remember. So it throws me some options and says, is this true or false? And I should know about our product, because if I don't, I'm going to get fired. So yes, this is true. What happens is resolve that I cannot, solve your issue. Well, it creates a ticket. Actually, it's all of the above, right? So it can do all of the above. Answer is yes. Okay, great. And then it asks me some other question. What are the skills? I think they're all the skills. So this is all testing, the system is kind of testing whether, making sure that I have learned what I've done or not. And this is not quite all right. Looks like I failed here. But depending on how you set it, how many what percentage of questions I need to pass and go, you can actually set that. Now, here is the interesting thing. I can go to the next topic. Apparently, based on my answers, I can still go to the next question. I can revisit it, or I can just ask a question. If I decide to ask a question, here is where, the bot kicks in, and now bot is going to answer me. So for example, if I say, is the sky blue, right? Let's say I was doing the training and something was not clear to me, and let's just assume that was a question that that I was not clear about. It quickly tells me sky is blue indeed, right? So it gives me the answer because the knowledge base here had the right answer, right? And again, you will say, how did it have the right answer? Well, after a few launches, people will ask some questions and you can build your database of questions based on that, right? Or you can anticipate some questions like some acronym. The most common thing is people put all the acronyms here, because if while doing training, you are not remembering what was this acronym about, boom, there you go, the bot will help you. Now, if this helps me, if I say yes, which in this case it did, and this is great, and it says, okay, you can move on and ask another question. Or you can go back to the program or something like that. It's very flexible in terms of what you want to do. But let's say if I say ask another question and say, what is okay, let's ask, who is Manish Sharma? And I don't think, this bot and I have been acquainted, so to say. So it doesn't know that yet. He doesn't know me yet. And what it does is, when it does not know the answer, it will quickly go check in the backend and see if someone is available to chat with me, the person who created. But it found out that there's no expert available to chat right now. The person who created the training is not available to chat. So it says, okay, I've created an offline query. Someone will be in touch with you soon. If someone was available, I could actually get into a live chat with them and have the conversation. So this is the front end of the story, and hopefully this gives you enough of a sense of how, in the flow of the work, people can quickly get trained in 3 or 4 minutes, look at the important things, move on. But before we go back to the theory part, I'm going to show you a little bit of, on the back end as well, how it looks and how it feels. It's pretty amazing product, if I may say so. Here is the, one of the topics. So some particular training, here are the different topics. You can pick and choose. If you want to add something to the training, it's really easy. You just go here, you can add a video card or text or image card, and just, if I just add it, boom, it has added that. And I can add a new video URL, I can give a title, I can, tell if I will allow a question here or not, ask for help, I'm allowing that here or not. what is the text after you know, as simple as that. And once I save and publish it, it's going to go. I can add quizzes very easily. I can go here and add a quiz. I can add a new article. I can clone it, right? It's all very modern, way of doing setting up training. Interesting thing here is people like me. I'm not, I'm just an executive in my company, not an expert, L&D expert of some kind. I'm not L&D leader in my company, but when I need to communicate with my team about something, I quickly go here, create a new learning, and then boom, push it out to everyone or to whoever I want to push out. You can push it out to everyone in the company. You can push it out to only HR people, only sales people. You have that kind of ability. And that is that, and I can quickly create a learning within 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and do it. During this entire COVID saga, there was a whole need to communicate to your employees about various things, safety, and when you are coming to back to office. If you come back to office, how do you do it? We created trainings here and just disseminated, right? There's a very good alternate. And we were actually finding out through the answers from the employee, what is their concern? What are they asking, right? So there's a very much feedback loop kind of, training scenario that you're living with. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it here. There's a lot more to show in the demo, but for the purpose of the webinar, we can leave it here. So now we are going to address a couple of other things. Like some people ask me, well, I already have a LMS system. As a matter of fact, some people will tell, I have 3 LMS systems. Why should, how do we incorporate the fourth one? Where is the, how does it play in? So one answer clearly is that this is not your traditional LMS, right? As you might have already figured out. It fits a need which is not in the LMS zone and more than an email. It fits somewhere in between kind of needs, fits a very dynamic environment need. It fits a need where you want to democratize your learning. It fits a need where you're trying to create a culture of learning, and you're trying to maybe change a cultural shift within your companies. That is where these kind of products are extremely easy, where you want people not to feel like they're learning, but they're still learning. They're in teams, they learn something, they move on. That is where the product fits. But just so you know, we also integrate with traditional LMS. So I know that a lot of the dashboards that learning and development people have are from existing LMS, and they'll not want to go to different places. How many trainings are done? What percentage, and so on and so forth. There are a bunch of, dashboards that you want. So we can just integrate with any traditional LMS. And all traditional LMS have 2 or 3 different APIs through which they integrate, and we can integrate with them, and then you don't need to worry about. So the need that it fits. If you're a university, imagine, I'm going to give you a different scenario. If you're a university, your scenario is that professors can use this as a reinforcement learning. We call it reinforcement learning. That means you've already done a class, 1 hour class, and you are now leaving a 3-minute video and training behind so that people will, students will go through it and learn. If you're a corporate, change management, boom, number one. And change management is most of the learning today, actually. Of course, again, you can couple this with reinforcement learning with the LMS system. You have a huge LMS system, but you can reinforce everything else with this. So there are a lot of interesting ways this product can be used and is being used. So we are going to go towards the recap because I think we are towards the end 15 minutes of our journey. So first question, what are the potential enterprise use cases, right? I mean, leave aside the, the universities and educational institute, which are already using the product, which they have a very specific purpose in which they use it. But apart from that, if you think about sales team training, policy training of any kind, business operations like underwriters, architecture group, employee onboarding, contact center, change management, right? Imagine you are a retail shop and you have to train all your pharmacists, for example, who are coming in a particular way before they can be allowed to work, or any of your employees. All this will be like hugely simplified. I mean, one thing I want to remind everyone, Teams is on phone as well. So Teams is not only here, but on Teams. Now, the product does work outside Teams as well. I know I have been giving the information that Teams. It works in Teams, obviously, because we are a team-centric organization. But does it work on web? Yes, it does. Simple as that. So, we already covered some of that, but so maybe this slide I can skip. It kind of goes over why the product is differentiated, but I'll go through some best practices. This is generic, not just our product, but in generic. We suggest that do everything small, right? If you're asking quiz, don't ask more than 2 or 3 quiz questions. Don't give them training more than 3 to 7 minutes. You don't allocate like month full of training in one day. Give a small pieces that they can learn. you know Change that with some funny stuff too. So there's a lot of potential for gamification here, in terms of making it, sending surveys, sending you know challenging questions, doing some competition on knowledge where people can earn some amazing prize. So this is really truly taking you towards the gamification of enterprise learning. And our session always is make it interesting. Don't just make it drab training that people hate coming here, but rather make it light and easy so that people really keep coming back. And they have every reason to, by the way, given everything else with the product. But we can also help with the training content, and that makes life easier. What you're going to see eventually if you go with product like these is, retention rate is going up. You are going to train in the flow of the learning. Your engagement will be much higher between the people. And really what you're doing is, there's an analyst, very noted analyst in the industry, quoted this word from me after seeing this product. He said, your product is a cognitive extension of trainers. A cognitive extension of trainers. And I just love that phrase, because there are so less resources sometimes available to L&D department that you feel like you have to create a clone of yourself and give yourself more power. And I think this is the easiest way to give yourself more power. Well, I think I covered most of what I wanted to cover. This is a dialogue, so I'll welcome if people want to ask any questions. If you want to see more details in the product, you're welcome to see that as well. But I'm going to pause a little bit and see if there are any questions from anyone in the audience. No questions yet. So, well, thank you so much for joining this webinar today. I really appreciate it, and have a great rest of the day, and feel free to reach out to us if you, oh, I see a question here. Question has come. In a large organization, do you see all the training being created centrally or department wise or regional store level? Well, you can create the training centrally, but with the beauty of this product is you can also create them regionally. So it's either or. It does not have to be central federal kind of model, but it can also be a regional kind of model. It can be both, right? If you're a, for example, sales manager, 50 people report to you, you can use the product to just train those 50 people. That's okay. Fantastic. All right. I think that's it in terms of questions. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much and have a great rest.